coming to you from the DTC. This is OCN Drives with Jeffrey Herbert.
It's sad, but I'd rather sleep in a car bed.
Graham Briggs.
What am I supposed to say? Stop making fun of my nubs?
And Alex Ball.
Power Wagon. This just makes me laugh.
And now your host, Jeffrey Herbert.
Hey, gearheads. Welcome to another episode of OCN Drives. I'm Jeff Herbert, and I'm here with,
Graham Briggs.
And Alex Ball.
of course, Josh at the knobs. That joke never gets old.
Never gets old.
Anyway, this podcast...
It got old 6 podcasts ago.
It did. Well, I believe in getting as much mileage out of a joke as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to use a joke so much where it gets old and then it starts getting funny again because of how repetitive.
I would rather you treat a joke like a lotus and that it breaks down really quickly.
I was going to say, drive it and drive it and drive it
Nope.
until you can't get
The
enough.
complete opposite.
Yes, I
You
agree.
drive it once and then it doesn't work ever again.
Okay. Well, guys, I just want to make a quick announcement. We
Woohoo!
have a sponsor.
Shocking.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
So we're super excited. This podcast is brought to you by Colorado Ranch Market. Get ready for a food buying experience unlike any other. Their grand opening is December 14th in Colorado Springs at 3333 North Academy Boulevard. So head over there during the grand opening for a chance to win free produce for a year or an Oculus VR headset, which would be cool to win because we'll probably do some 360 video. Hint, hint, hint. Of us driving some extremely cool cars.
And my motorcycle.
And your motorcycle.
I'm gonna take our. We have access to a 3D camera, and they have asked me on my motorcycle rides to give it a shot, see how the hell goes. It'll go terrible.
I was just
Yeah.
going to say, how are you going to clamp that on, that bad boy?
I just get a helmet attachment, or
Oh, okay,
just
okay.
yeah, probably put it on my helmet, or you might want it stationary, so you could either clip it to the back of my bike. Would
Is
probably
this-
be the way to go.
Is this a new 3D camera or is that big globe? that
No, they
we
have a small one.
Okay,
they have like a
small
portable
one.
one.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so we'll probably do that.
That's awesome.
That should be good.
Yeah.
And then I get a GoPro this month, so I'm gonna start OCN Drives. I think I'll probably start uploading some motorcycle adventuring in Colorado.
Yeah. Well, all cool
Exciting.
stuff. All cool stuff. Before we get started, Graham, should we get cracking?
Yes, let's do that. I've already cracked it a little bit, but you'll hear some still.
That's okay. And what is that delicious beverage you have?
See, we have a fresh squeeze IPA from Deschutes Brewing, and here's a little save.
Very nice.
Ooh,
All right, I just got sprayed
yeah,
big time.
that's awesome. What are you drinking there?
I'm drinking the Dry Dock Hazy IPA.
Ooh, fantastic.
Yeah, excellent beer. Okay, today's episode is going to be all about racing. So I hope you guys are ready to talk about
Ooh, I'm
checkered flag and everything in between.
I'm really
In
excited
fact,
about
I
this.
was so ready for this. I even wore my Martin Truex Jr. t-shirt.
It's very nice.
Thank
I
you.
like it a lot.
Thank you. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but this is the throwback to the when he was with Furniture Row Racing, which was
Furniture
based.
Row,
Yeah, it was
based in
based out of
Denver.
Denver.
Yep.
So, which is where we are. So I always wanted to support those guys. Unfortunately, he is no longer with Furniture Row Racing. He's now with Joe Gibbs, but support him nonetheless. Anyway, Graham, I know you want to talk about kind of the brief history of racing.
Yes, I would like to. I have a couple notes here, so if I'm
So
going to be
class
reading
is
a
in
little,
session.
Yeah, a little bit of this is going to be read. A little bit is this is knowledge, and I'll add a little.
You don't have to like
ad lib in
go
here.
over the entire history of racing.
No, I
Keep it brief.
Yeah,
you
I'm
got
going
shit to talk about.
Guess what? I've got the bullet points, as they like to say. All right, so the first organized contest was on April 28th, 1887. It was 2 kilometers long, which is 1.2 miles, which is really short. Because now, especially when they're running, races that have, up to 600 miles or more at Le Mans, you do way more than that endurance racing.
True.
So,
This is first automobile racing.
first automobile racing. So this is
I
an
was like,
internal.
I feel like we've been racing longer than that.
We have been, but this is the first internal combustion auto racing, and that's really where I wanted to start this, and not like racing with like horses or wagons or any of that type of stuff. So the first American automobile race
America.
was known to be generally held on Thanksgiving Day by the Chicago Times, and it's called the Chicago Times Herald Race on November 28th, 1895. And it was the first significant press coverage for a race in the United States.
And that's kind of awesome because there's manufacturers definitely use racing not only as a sales tool, but pretty much as a sales tool, but just to show off.
Right. Is it
a sales tool?
It's a
Yes.
it's a marketing tool.
Win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Who are
Ooh,
they
yeah.
targeting with that? Like the 4 billionaires?
Okay.
No, it's called enthusiast marketing.
No, there's-
People like us see those cars winning.
Yes.
And to quote Ford versus Ferrari, we want a little piece of that victory.
I guess.
Nice.
I guess.
Jeff is adamant about
I
this.
think the only-
This is where we strongly disagree, Alex, is that
I was gonna say the only car I think that's ever worked for me, marketing wise, when it comes to racing, I guess would be the WRX because I like that it's a rally. But like, I can't think of like Porsche racing cars isn't gonna make me want to buy a Porsche. Like that's just like, I guess I'm just not the target demographic. But
well, I mean, it's part of it is just brand recognition and just getting your brand name out there. So it's not trying to say that every
But, like,
911 is going to sell a
Ferrari
911.
winning a race isn't gonna make me want to buy a Ferrari.
It keeps the name and it keeps the pedigree.
It's the reason why Ferrari is what it is today
Exactly.
because of their vehement support of motorsports.
Yes, exactly. And also, it breeds an R&D that is
Yes.
more than just them doing test on a track or anything like that.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of, seeing what Mercedes has done in Formula One for the past 5 years or so has really kind of not necessarily changed my opinion of the brand, but it's definitely made it a lot sexier.
We're having
Just saying.
a little bit of
Anyway, Graham, didn't mean to interrupt you there. Please continue.
No, I appreciate the jump in because this is a little bit bullet pointy. So the first ever purpose-built motor racing venue was in Brooklands in Surrey in June 1907 was when it was first opened, and it was a 2.75 mile concrete track. With high-speed banked corners. You don't see the bank as much of the banked corners as it was back then, but there's still a little bit of banking even now in any new, like NASCAR or any like oval built track. There's some banking
With the
still going on.
exception of the road races.
With the exception of road races, yeah. And then, so American-wise, constructed in 1909, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Speedway, Indiana, is, first of all, the largest capacity sports venue of any variety in the world.
And it is filled.
Yes, and it can fill, the top capacity is 257,000. That's really big. That's a lot of people. Yep, 250,000. And it's one of the, I think it's actually the oldest purpose-built constructed track in the United States. So,
Cool.
Also has held lots of important races. Obviously, it always holds the Indianapolis 500 and the Brooklands 400. But it also...
You mean the Brickyard?
Brickyard, excuse me, thank you.
All good.
And then for a period of time, it was where F1 did their American Grand Prix, which is now in Austin. But I think it will probably come back to Indianapolis sometime in the future. Excuse me. Then next big thing in racing, I would say, is the endurance racing in 24 Hours of Le Mans. That started in 1923. One of the big things about Le Mans, not only Ford versus Ferrari, but it was one of the first races that had a really bad car wreck that kind of changed how motorsports is nowadays. And that was in the 1950. A car went off and crashed into a crowd of spectators, killing more than 80 people. So from then on, it's kind of been a thing where every couple decades they do a bunch of different things where safety is more and more and more important. So
Yeah, that was crazy. That was 83 people
Yeah, 83
died in that incident.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. There is footage of it, and it's ridiculous to see how many people died. But also, going off of that, and something that I don't have in this history of motorsports is rally car racing. Group C, which is now disbanded, had like something like you could have up to 500 horsepower or something like that, some ridiculous thing. And the big thing was that they would allow spectators to like stay on the side of the track, and you would see these are those videos where you see like a rally car come bowing down, and then you have these guys standing out in the middle of the track or the dirt road, taking pictures, and they're like almost hitting these people. It was it's crazy to see these old footage of this. I'm like,
I'm getting like goosebumps with
it's
you just
ridiculous.
talking about it.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, so that's kind of like a theme of where motorsports went after like the 1960s and 70s. Is it became a lot more about like safety, and that's kind of been one of the main things that's pushed a lot of where motorsports has gone. And then we'll also talk about technology. But the big thing here also that I want to talk about is NASCAR. NASCAR was founded by Bill France Sr. in 1948. First race was held at Daytona Beach. And, it started a lot from a period of time where they did, and lots of people probably have heard this, but they basically were bootleggers and kind of came from the
Hell
bootleggers.
yes.
And then they wanted to do these stock cars that then that they had to modify because they put all the moonshine in the back, and they had to stiffen up the suspension. But then they also said, we want to drive faster than the police officers, so they get smaller cars. They make the boot a lot bigger, stiffen up the suspension, and then also put bigger engines so that they could drive a lot faster.
Exactly, and outrun law enforcement, baby.
Yeah, exactly. That was the main
NASCAR.
thing.
I like it.
And then so I mean, the beginning part was it was all stock, and then a lot of safety and performance stuff was allowed. And for the first 10, 15 years of NASCAR, it was basically them slowly changing from these outward appearance of stock cars, and everything else internal was totally different. So that's where we're at with NASCAR today, basically, is that they're supposed to look very similar to stock cars on the outside, but
Except for
What?
Toyota has
Yes.
never made a V8 Camry.
that's very true.
Yet they race the. Not that I'm saying it's a bad thing, because I welcome all manufacturers into racing.
yeah.
And in fact, that's part of how I feel about
Dislike.
a brand is, do they engage in motorsports?
okay,
For me
okay, yeah,
personally,
yeah.
but that's because I'm an enthusiast.
At least in one area, there's a lot of like there's certain manufacturers that have specializations in certain race
Right.
type mentalities, but there's and one thing that we're going to talk about next that I want to get into is like where it's at now. It's just very expensive for some of these for some of these manufacturers to get into.
True.
And some of them are saying, "Oh, we're not seeing the return," but some people, yeah, it depends. We can get into that. I want to.
We'll keep moving on.
Yeah. So the big thing, other that kind of is highlighting where we were at and where we are at now, is the development of electronic driver aids began in the 1980s in Formula One. And a lot of that is bringing in basically like the computer stuff, action suspension, all these other things. And a lot of things they've done was F1's been very like against that. And recently within the last 3 decades, have been very open to a lot more technology coming in. And so a lot of this stuff, which we were talking about with Alex, is a lot of this stuff has become more about the research and the development of these new technologies.
Yeah.
Even not even just the technology, but like, you'll see a lot of these manufacturers, like how engine blocks are made or what they're made of, these different type of alloys, and like them testing different type of alloys and then using those in vehicles to make them lighter and all this other stuff. So a lot of that stuff is a lot of the technology that's used in racing, especially in Formula One, Formula E, all these other types of racing slowly come down into the production vehicles. So yeah, that's kind of the history of where racing was at. Did you guys have anything to add to that?
Excellent brief history of racing. I feel like we'll touch on NASCAR a little bit more.
Yeah, NASCAR definitely. NASCAR is a little bit. It's an interesting go around. It had a very good past, and then it's got like a good like middle, but it's interesting where it's at now,
Right.
compared to other motorsports.
Well, and I have some suggestions for NASCAR.
Ooh, and see, that would be what our next. Let's go dive right into that, because I wanted to talk about like where racing was at and where it's currently going to in the future. So,
Right, definitely. So as far as NASCAR goes, I know we're kind of talking about, you mentioned the history of the moonshiners running their cars across state lines with a whole bunch of moonshine in the back, and then the NASCAR was officially founded in 1948 with relatively stock cars, and then we get into like what I like to call La Dolce Vita period of just racing in general.
Sure.
Whether it's Formula 1 or Le Mans or even NASCAR, it's that like mid 50s to like late 60s era, and like even just like looking at NASCAR specifically, you have cars like the Roadrunner Daytona with the funny nose on the front and the big wing in the back, and that's going to be racing against like a Galaxy 500, which is aerodynamically a brick,
right,
in comparison. And then you have but to counter that, Ford's running their legendary Cammer engine, which is actually got outlawed in NASCAR, and is part of the, I don't know, because it had an overhead cam design, which at the time was pretty trick stuff, to have a big, huge V8 with an overhead cam, allowing it to rev quite a bit higher and produce more horsepower with the right cam settings than some of their pushrod counterparts. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that back then they allowed a lot more variation in the cars, which made for some pretty interesting racing and stuff like that. And I think the same is true, especially with Le Mans, for sure. Because if you look at the difference between a Ferrari P330 and like the GT40, they're vastly different in their shapes, in their engine design, and stuff like that. So that I don't know. It's just kind of cool. I mean, I understand why they kind of try and make cars more the same. And yes, I guess it helps drivers display their skill. So it like takes that element out that like, oh, so and so just has a better car, kind of deal.
Yeah, I always think like,
but from a car guy perspective, I like to see that variation.
And that's the thing, is like, I think that's one thing that you're gonna find in racing, is that you're either gonna have the people that are all for the differences and just want the manufacturer to be able to show what the difference is. But with that, you always have the problem, or you have this issue with, well, then it's just a pay for play. It's who has the most money to spend and who has the best technical team, basically.
Not to mention safety too. I know that was you touched on that a little bit, but whether it's Le Mans or like NASCAR, part of my French there, Josh. Whether it's that or NASCAR, you have these cars running well over 200 miles per hour, and that was even in the 60s.
Yeah. I mean, some of them, they've definitely managed the horsepower and the output that you can put in certain cars.
Which I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know how I feel about that either. I mean, I understand it. It's supposed to be about the driver himself and which can get the most out of a vehicle, but... All right, Alex over there.
Alex doesn't seem like he's very much
not
a
very
race
impressed.
fan.
He's just...
I'm going to be completely honest. Don't give a flying shit about racing.
Oh, my.
Never once in my life have I watched
You don't like
race.
You don't like motorcycle racing?
I don't like any of it. It doesn't interest me. It doesn't captivate me. I understand that some of the technology trickles down into modern day cars, but it hardly ever does. And when it does, it takes decades. Like Formula One had a flappy paddle gearbox like 50 years ago, and
It was like 30 years ago.
It took that long to get it into a consumer car, and it didn't. And the first
No,
consumer
they've
car
been-
was like a Ferrari.
They've been
like,
in, yes. That's always how it's going to be because they're just so expensive.
like
and
it
it's
moves.
new.
It moves way too slow to care about the technology, in my opinion. Like if they were like, "Hey, we invented this new thing. We tried it in the Formula One car this year, and next year we're putting it in."
Oh, I'm not
like,
saying
I
it's-
would be all about that, but it's like, "Hey, we put this in our Formula One car, and
But-
I don't know, 3 decades from now, you'll see it."
But I'm not saying that it's direct one-to-one. Some of it is like just understanding that, like carbon fiber is one of the big things that was brought through F1 and other racing types. They brought in carbon fiber was first racing, and then they brought it into consumer vehicles, and now it's almost ubiquitous across all these different car models. Yes, obviously it's
But
for the higher end.
I was going
but-
to say car models that still, again, carbon fiber is awesome.
Yeah.
It has made it to the consumer
Right.
market.
Yes.
You cannot get a carbon fiber car, carbon fiber that matters in your car, like for under $100,000.
No, you can. You can get. You can
Not,
get.
you're not going to get a car
You can get
that has
panels.
useful carbon
Yeah,
fiber.
you can get a BMW with
Like, it's
the
just-
hood panel or the top.
like
or
once Josh can buy his carbon fiber Tacoma, that's when I'll be like, we did it.
Oh
Carbon
my
fiber
God.
Okay,
works.
unbelievable. Alex,
We've made
Alex,
it.
what is your dream car
My dream car.
What?
currently? Hold on.
I don't really know him. I mean, for a while it's been the GT500.
Okay, and take away everything that racing has contributed to that car, and what are you left with?
a chassis,
Just a regular Mustang.
maybe.
And yeah, that seems quite a bit.
No,
less
no.
like a
So
dream car.
the only thing I do care, and that's a good point bringing up, and the reason why I like the GT500, not the new one. I don't like the new one. I like the older ones. I enjoyed the history of racing to an extent. Like I like Shelby's, but that's more
Yeah.
of like the general history of Carroll Shelby. I don't really care that he raced. I've never watched him race, but it's like I appreciate the cars he's built. They certainly have some racing aspects to them. I mean, at the end of the day, a GT500 is just a Mustang with a big supercharger. Like it's not like
He's unbelievable.
Where does he think superchargers came from?
This is why he's not going to Vegas with us.
it's
Yeah,
true.
you
Well,
know,
we've already decided I'm too tall to drive, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh yeah, we got to keep that on the down low. Too.
Yeah. No, I just
Just a little teaser.
I don't mean to be like the downer of the group.
No, you're
but it's
fine.
like this is just so far out of my wheel to
Yeah.
be, you know,
Well,
punny.
That's
Well,
okay.
That it's
we-
like, and it's just been like
Don't
something
worry.
that
We can hold your hand. Don't
Yeah.
worry, we got you.
I have no knowledge about.
So-
and I
Hold on.
No,
Listeners,
okay,
if
sorry.
you're out there, please leave your comments at ourcommunitynow.com or on our posts why Alex should get into racing.
Or on the video.
Or
for
why
it,
we
and then
should get
YouTube
out of
video.
it.
Graham had me watch stuff about one of our topics today, which is Formula E, which is kind of a new racing circuit of
Yep.
electric cars. And that actually kind of interested me a little. I'm still not going to watch it, but but at least when I watched
Yeah.
other people talk about it, I was
Sure.
like, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so
let's get back to it,
yeah, I
Graham.
kind of
Sorry
want to
to
go.
derail you.
No problems. The end of this racing overview, I kind of want to talk about since Alex did mention something that is interesting. Some people might not watch every weekend or religiously watch something, but they might have a favorite racing moment in
True.
history. So, or famous or one of their favorite racing races. Alex, do you have one specifically?
A specific moment in racing history.
Moment.
The problem is, again, I don't care, but
Well, you mentioned one.
mine is just more, again, historical
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah.
So something like Ford versus Ferrari, that's the
Right.
big movie
Right.
right now. It's not even that I necessarily care that Ford beat Ferrari. It's more it's just an interesting story.
Sure.
Like it's a really good story because Enzo Ferrari is a crazy person.
Yeah.
And
No, and that's
And I love him for
yeah,
it.
we love him for it.
That's
but
why
it's
I-
like the story it wouldn't even be interesting if Ford just was like, "Hey, we're gonna build a car and beat
And
and
beat-
win."
yeah.
But it's like it's more interesting that they tried to buy Ferrari and Ferrari was like, "Fuck you guys."
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, they were the big thing was they really didn't want them to. They were going to take down all the racing and all that stuff. and
Yeah.
Enzo was not happy about that.
Because racing matters.
It's
Because
one of those.
racing
Yes, it
matters.
matters.
It's one of those alternate realities where I wish I could see the world of Ford buying Ferrari? Like if it actually happened? Like,
Oh, yeah,
our
that would
world
be interesting.
Would Ford cars be better?
Better?
Would they be worse?
Or would Ferrari be worse
'Cause there's
or better?
yeah, 'cause
I
the
think it would be
Ferrari
worse.
would be worse.
Yeah, well, the Ferrari would probably definitely be worse, and I wouldn't be surprised.
There goes our Ford
Yeah,
sponsor.
yeah.
I know,
There it
and I
goes.
wouldn't. I know, and
Throwing them out
it
the
gets
door.
worse because I actually think if Ford did it, I think they'd actually have made Ford cars worse too.
You think so?
Yeah, I think going their own trail and making something like the GT, and how that. I think,
So that's what I'm
think
trying to get at
I think
here.
that's more important.
That's what I'm trying
Ford,
to get at
yeah.
here. Is racing this little racing duel, this duel, and this racing environment has made both of them better. I think it made both of
agree.
them better because they had this competitive drive, not just to outsell, but to outrace these people, the others.
Not to mention, too, I want to make something clear. I know earlier in the podcast I said I thought it was cool that manufacturers use racing to show off their engineering prowess, but
yes.
I also want to compliment the bravado behind it all. Like with the Ford versus Ferrari,
It's a
the
very-
10 miles. I think Ken Miles should have driven the piss out of it and not
Yeah.
done the stupid, bring all three in at the same time kind of deal, which cost
Agreed.
him the win. And I don't know, just want to make our listeners know that I'm on your side.
Nice, I like it. All right,
But my
Jeff.
favorite moment, it's the world against Alex.
It is the world again.
Josh, well, you and Josh can go do Tacoma things with your friends. Go contact your buddy Martin.
There
Go
is
go
trucks.
be lonely men out in
There's
the.
racing.
You
truck
sound
series.
like you wouldn't be there too, Jeff.
Okay, I would be. I would love to be there.
You would be there. The only person who might not be there would be Graham, and he'd still be there.
I would just be watching from the side and watch a
We'd-
reliable
we'd-
vehicle. Just
We'd bring him a
die on
fancy
the road.
like cheese and wine plate, and he'd be there.
I'd probably just rip out a couple of the wires just to be like, look, the Toyota died, haha.
And then somehow it comes back
Yeah,
to life.
Exactly, like magically.
But speaking of famous racing moments, I really appreciate. Since I am wearing my NASCAR shirt today, I want to talk about. I want to mention the Dale Earnhardt pass in the grass, baby, which was. I don't. If you haven't seen it, go onto YouTube. We might even link to it. I don't know if we're allowed to do that, but 1987 All-Star race. It was Bill Elliott versus Dale Earnhardt, and somehow on the final stretch. Dale Earnhardt was able to carry enough speed to go through part of the grass and pass, and just fortify the legend that he is.
Sounds questionably legal in the racing sport. Was that just like one of those like,
Hey,
we didn't think anyone would be dumb enough
you
to
know
try
what?
it, so it wasn't a rule?
This was 1987. When cigarettes could still sponsor race cars, so
Yes.
rules are off.
No,
baby.
that
rules
was
are
a-
off, and it was it's a
'Cause, like,
fantastic moment in motorsports.
I may not know a lot about racing, but I do know in most racing sports that if you cut corners on a track or anything, you get time penalized. So it's just interesting to hear that he's like, he won the race. It's like, well, he cheated.
yeah,
I mean, that's, if you go off the track and cut distance to gain
No.
advantage, you
So-
cheated.
Okay, I might have misspoke. I believe it might have been with 8 laps to go. I can't remember specifically, but he didn't cut a corner. It was during one of the straightaways. So in fact, it was.
Oh, so
it
instead
was
of
like-
going on the
it was like-
outside on the track, he went on the inside onto the grass.
It was
Yeah.
So it was disadvantage. It was disadvantageous to Mr. Earnhardt to do this, or he was bumped into it, but was able to carry enough speed to still make the pass.
Well, that's impressive.
It is. I don't know how it happened. So
Still kind of sounds like cheating, but
okay, we're gonna watch it later on YouTube.
all right, yeah,
me
we'll
and
watch
you.
it.
But all right, Alex.
No, Alex already won. It's,
Oh,
it's my
your
turn.
turn. My apologies.
Mine is going to be the 1983 World Rally Championship. It's basically Lancia, which is they're not really around. I think they make one vehicle now. They're an Italian
Correct.
racing company that basically just was making cars to race. They really weren't making cars outside of just racing. But there's a great, if you love Top Gear, there's a great little, is it on Top Gear or is it on Grand Tour? I think it's Grand Tour,
It's
actually.
the same difference.
Now, I want them to know. I think it's the Grand Tour. We'll put it in the little description when we put this on OCN / on the description of the YouTube video. But there's a great little piece that that they do that kind of talks about it. Basically, it's Lancia taking on Audi, who at that time started with their Quattro, which was a four-wheel drive system. Everything else was rear-wheel drive. And if you know anything about rallying, four-wheel drive now is like a mainstay. So it was a big deal because the Quattro was taking a lot of events, and Lancia basically did a couple little things that were really funny. They basically they made with the Group B you had to make so many cars. I think it was 2,000 cars. So they made 1,000 cars. I think they got up to 1,000 cars, and they had them in one lot. And then basically the car manufacturer guy takes these guys out to lunch. And basically, it was like a 3-hour Italian lunch. Of course, you got to have your, antipasta. You got to have your cheese and wine between each meal. And why not? And why only drink one bottle or 2 bottles? You got to drink at least 3 or 4 at lunch, and then go drive somewhere.
Or podcast.
We do not support drinking and driving.
No, we don't.
But then they took them to, as this was happening, they had their whole team drive all these other vehicles to another lot. And then they took them to this other lot, and then there was 1,000 there. So it's like, oh, check off the list. They also did not.
Another classic case of cheating.
Yes, another classic case of cheating. There's also 2 other big things during this.
But in the most stylish way possible.
It's not even
I can
cheating. It's
imagine.
just lazy.
So
just build the cars.
There was 12 rallies, and then 2 other big things during these rallies. One was that the roll cage was basically cardboard and was painted to look like it was a roll cage. And then the other thing is that that during one of the races that had some very slippery corners, they basically the night before they basically took all these the team, the engineers and everything took all these ice bags and just threw ice bags on the course. So it was actually, as the day went on, and they were later on in the day, all the ice had melted. So the four-wheel drive of the Quattro actually didn't help any. So there's a lot more. There's some great things. Also, they had a great driver, Walter. How do you pronounce his last name? Roll? I think that's how his name is pronounced. But anyways, he's got a great line in it, and he was like, he only raced, I think, 7 out of the 12 races, because there's 5 races that he didn't want to do. And one of the races was in Finland, which is very bumpy, and he's like, when I race, I don't like to do jumps. If I wanted to do jumps and get in the air, I would be an airplane pilot or something like that. It's pure German, and it's hilarious how he said
That's
that.
amazing.
But we'll make sure to link that in. Those
Okay.
are all some good racing moments.
I hate to pause you there, but if you do love Italian food or
Ooh.
German food, for that matter, you can find some fantastic ingredients to make those recipes at Colorado Ranch Market, which is opening on December 14th in Colorado Springs at 3333 North Academy Boulevard. So head over there for the grand opening. You'll have a chance to win free produce for a year and an Oculus VR headset.
Wow, that was a seamless transition.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
it's
do.
really
I
good.
appreciate that.
It was nice and smooth.
We're super thankful for those guys for sponsoring us
Yes.
and helping keep things. I think they're car guys.
Are they?
That's what I heard.
Okay, that's fantastic. We love car guys.
Yeah,
Probably
we do.
listening to this podcast. Okay,
Exactly. But we do need
Jump
to
into
cut
it.
ahead a little bit because I know there are some things we want to touch on today, including Formula E versus Formula One.
Yes.
And then also we have to talk about the Mercedes AMG that we had
Right.
as well. So, Graham, I know
wanna-
you're impassioned.
Yes.
You're a passionate
Yes.
supporter of both Formula E and Formula One.
Yes.
What do you want to talk about?
So I think what I want to do is I want us, since Alex is kind of a outsider on this, I want us to.
He's like a cancer
You
on
can
this episode.
you can
We
take-
should just cut him off.
No, no,
True,
no, no.
I could just
no.
leave.
No, I don't. We don't want you to leave.
You guys could just make out by
No.
yourselves
Oh
for a
my
little
gosh.
bit.
You can't watch
Touche.
though, or you have to pay $100.
Oh yeah.
I would pay money not to watch that.
Perfect. Anyways, but what I was trying to say is I think Alex can be the judge on who makes a better compelling statement for their favorite.
There we go.
The
You can be
problem is I
referee.
already know which one I would rather. And it's kind of your fault, Graham, because you made me watch those videos.
I didn't mean to,
Yeah.
guys. Never would I ever plant a seed like that. Ever.
Yeah. It's interesting that you only sent me Formula E videos
Oh,
and
yeah.
not Formula One videos.
Yeah, exactly.
I noticed.
Yeah.
Okay, Graham. Lay it on us.
Okay, I'll lay it on you. First of all, Formula One is the pinnacle of racing. I'm gonna say
Yes.
that. It's definitely.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Is it
Please
the
and thank you.
pinnacle
Sorry
of
about that.
racing?
I would say that it would be all around the pinnacle of racing. Now, there are other sports and other racing venues that actually have a little bit, in certain areas, better than others. Like endurance racing, I think obviously a car has to be really good and the drivers have to be really good for endurance racing. You have nighttime driving, all of that stuff, obviously way different than in Formula One. But Formula One is definitely you've got the most technology. And if you go head to head on anything like even LMP1 cars versus Formula One cars,
No contest.
when you're talking 0 to 100, yes, LMP might have that.
Well, I'm not
but
arguing that
all the way
that the
it's-
cars aren't probably just the best. Although I
Yes.
don't even know if I'd call them a car. Like, yes, they have four wheels. Yes, they have an engine. But it's like, I mean, it's that it's one of the reasons I am not interested in racing like Formula One, because to me it's not a car. I mean, it's a go kart at best to me, because nothing about it is street legal. And that's what interests me. It's cars that can drive on the street.
Nothing about it is street legal.
Nothing. There's
The mirrors are street legal.
Hey, they race on the streets
true.
in
It's-
Monaco.
Oh, yeah.
and very famously
They do.
racing.
It's technically legal
racing
a couple times a
racing
year.
is accredited
Not
with.
only
And
not-
Melbourne Grand Prix.
Yeah, and I was just going to say
Melbourne Australia.
they don't just do it in Monaco. They
But
do it
it's
on other streets.
no, it's just my biggest issue with Formula One is it isn't a fair playing field, and so it's just not interesting. It's historically been the
Yes.
company that spends the most money wins,
True.
which is like Ferrari has significantly more wins than most because they
Yes.
spend 4 times the amount of money.
But this last 6 years, it's all been Mercedes. It's
True.
been dominating.
And
Before that was Red Bull,
but the issue is
who
if,
had a Honda engine or had a
Yeah.
Renault engine in it.
I just don't like that you can
Now
look
has
at
Honda.
a company's budget for racing and be like, yeah, they're probably going to win. It's just like, that's not fun to me. I
They're
like
working
racing.
on that.
I would prefer racing where the car was identical for everyone.
They're working on it.
Because then it was just the driver.
But I mean, it's $100 million car, and it's like almost $50 million every race for them to run. It's ridiculous how much money it costs to do those things.
That's why I secretly think IndyCar's better.
Okay,
But we'll get into that.
Hold on.
But Formula E.
I think Formula One has great, and it also has great drivers. But they're very,
Yes.
it's very particular. It's very small now. I think it has a lot of things coming up that they need to do. I think there needs to be a little bit more openness to changing, the body type and being allowed to do different things on the arrows. And I also think inside the engines, they should be allowed to do a little bit more different things. But on that note,
I mean, the last time, I think Ferrari was the company that did the CVT, right, in Formula One, and they got that banned, I believe.
yes, I believe
and
it
that
was.
came down again to a financial thing. Was Ferrari
Ferrari.
was the only company who could afford the CVT engine, so they for like the year
Yeah,
they had it,
transmission, yeah.
they crushed everyone.
Yeah.
But that's-
Okay, so to combat that though, it's Mercedes is way more profitable than
True.
Ferrari. They generate way more revenue than
Yeah,
Ferrari
but
does
again,
every year.
it's all about just how much money you're willing to put in, and it's
exactly.
like,
That's
does that
why
mean
I love
that
Ferrari
is-
because they care about motorsports.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean that's cool, and that's good for Ferrari that they're willing to spend that much money to win. But it's pay to win isn't interesting to me
Okay.
because that means
That's fair.
If Bill Gates got
That's
into
fair.
Formula One next year, he'd probably win because he has more money than all of them. So it's like, what if Bill Gates?
No, it still takes
If,
one.
if Bill Gates put a Formula One team on and is like, I'm gonna spend $2 billion on this, it's like how he would win in like under 5 years.
I
He
would
be
love
dominant.
that. I would.
It would
love
be
that.
funny.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
How big are your pockets, boys?
yeah.
Not big at all.
Mine is very small.
I mean, that's just my general issue, not with just racing, but I think just sporting in general. Is any kind of sport that gets affected by money is not that interesting to me. It's why I don't like professional sports that much anymore.
Ooh.
And it's just like it's if your thing is about how much money you can spend, then it's not.
Isn't
about,
that how
it's
it
not
always
about,
is?
It's not. No.
Let's bring-
If you have a completely fair playing field. And everyone has to be the same.
Then they all have to
Then
get the
it-
same
then it's about
vehicle. It's
skill.
so boring.
Then there's no
competition.
innovation.
There's no innovation. There's nothing.
Yeah. Then it's about the driver.
Oh, it's only about the driver then. I don't
And
want it to only be about the driver.
innovation stuff.
That's why they have
The
manufacturer
innovation stuff
championships and racers
is when
championships.
is when you do allow a little wiggle room, which I don't mind. But when you let cars be completely different, like you can do whatever engine you want.
That's
but
what
it just has
F1
to
is
kinda
now.
Fit in this.
That's
And
what
it's
F1 is now. There's cap. You can only spend so much money.
Yeah.
And in fact, you can only spend so much money. And in fact, you get docked extra if you spend more than that, or if you don't spend enough money too.
They just dock you.
You get a tax basically if you don't spend enough money too. So yeah.
So F1 teams, if you need to spend extra money because your engineers are so awesome, please donate to us.
That's typically not normally the issue.
That's
It's
a weird.
normally
That's a
they
weird,
can't find the funding
weird way
for
to
it.
set it up because it's like, who
Yeah.
cares if they don't spend enough money?
Well,
That's just,
no,
that
it's-
just means they lose.
It's to
but-
keep up with competition and other things.
But that
So,
should be their self choice. I do like having the high cap.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that they're just like you get in trouble for it. My opinion is if your car has more money in it over the cap, you just don't get to race. Like you've now cheated.
Well,
So
I mean,
that's just like a weird thing.
they're
Get
I don't
better
know.
business people on your team.
I guess
Alex.
so.
I don't
Yeah.
know officially if there's like so many times where you get docked if you've like spent this much over. There's
Yeah.
got to be. The rule book is this thick now. I liked it better when it was this thick, but they also had a lot of issues and they had a lot of deaths when that happened.
Right.
So, yeah, and obviously.
So
But
Formula
I think Formula One has actually been very varied. I mean, yes, Ferrari over the long period of
I
time
also-
has the most, but you're talking McLaren, you're talking all these other, you're talking
Yeah.
Lotus, you're talking a lot of different.
My other issue when it comes
It's
down
people
to
like
the-
you
is-
that have
yeah.
started this thing where
It's
they're
the-
like, oh, the money.
It's the
Because-
part of the innovation. I love the innovation. My issue with them not me not thinking that F1s are really cars.
Yeah.
Is that because they don't have to make it street legal? Which is if I was to choose to like racing, I would pick classes where it has to be a street
You're talking
car.
like GT or like sports cars.
Where it's because then if you have to follow the rules to make it street legal, that's where I think innovation really shines. Innovation doesn't shine when you can do what you want.
What?
Innovation shines
Yes.
when you have rules and you have to exceed those.
So
That's where I think
you
innovation
are
comes
false.
from.
You don't like going to the moon. I see it. You don't want to go to the Mars. You don't like Elon Musk. No going to Mars. I get it.
That's not innovation. That's Elon Musk trying to go to Mars to the moon is within line. That's or it is him going to the Mars is the innovation. I'm saying it wrong. Is the innovation I like because he has to play by the rules. Elon Musk can't just build a rocket and send it to Mars. He has to get it checked with the government. It has to be safety approved. It's all these things that make it better. It's all these rules. Elon Musk would have already sent a rocket to Mars if
guaranteed,
Yeah,
yes,
if the
guaranteed.
government was like, "Whoa, let's slow down there."
But what
Hey, we told you there are rules to this podcast. No F bombs,
yeah.
but you break that all the time.
Oh.
It's true.
Innovation. Anyways,
Innovation.
okay. Let me get into Formula E because we got to get going quick
Yes.
here. We're gonna not do this one. I'm gonna delete that off. Yeah. So Formula E. Big thing about Formula E. It's
Do you
about.
know when it was started?
6 years ago.
Okay.
They started. It was so new technology that they had to, in the middle of the race, you had to get out of one vehicle and jump into another vehicle. That ended about 3 years ago, which is good, but also like a little less entertaining because in the middle of a race they had to jump out. They had to go to the pits, jump out, and get into a new car. It was
Yeah, I
kinda
saw that
entertaining.
in one of the videos that you sent me. I was
Yeah.
like, "That's the dumbest thing I've
Yeah,
ever
it's
seen."
it was so stupid when I
so
first saw it,
stupid.
but like now that it's not there, it's kind of like, yes, I see why they did it, and I like it better.
I like
but
the
I still,
stress that the batteries create. I
Yeah.
think that might be the
It's-
thing that interests me the most in Formula E is that because you have, I mean, I'm sure you still have to manage your fuel
Yeah.
in other racing sports, but I bet it's way less stressful
Oh,
than the battery.
well, okay,
Because there's
so-
no refueling. It's the battery you start at the race has to last you to the end or you've lost.
so in F1, the two big things that you care about, not anymore is it fuel because you have a lot of electrical stuff in there, and they have plenty of room on fuel, but it's the regulations on fuel and weight.
yeah, I'm sure they're like,
And then the
you
other-
have to have X amount in your tank to. So
And then
you're
the other
not
thing is
lighter.
tires for F1.
Yeah.
For Formula E, it is about battery management. You'll see it at the end of races. They used to have like 3% or something like that. Now they're down to 1% or less at the end of the race. So they're using all of their power possible to get the most out of the cars. Now, Formula E is more your style because it's so regulated.
The bodies are identical.
Bodies are identical.
They can like adjust the suspension, but like really strictly.
It's very limited in what they can
it's not.
do.
It's more of just driver preference at that point than like advantage.
The big thing are the batteries and then the transmissions that are the
batteries are the same too. It's the motors and
yes.
that they can bring, which is interesting.
The batteries they can be a little bit different.
Can
but
they?
And they should be because there's no innovation unless you allow wiggle room.
Yes, there is a little bit of wiggle room. It's less of where it was in the original, because the original was a lot of this is just how it is, and now they've kind of moved a little bit away, and but everyone technically does around the same exact thing.
They're not identical cars, but they're pretty darn close.
The thing that makes Formula E exciting to me is both the battery management, but also I would say
You think they let them do their own software? That would be interesting.
What do you mean software? Okay,
especially for like a battery management.
So on F1 they have those big steering wheels, all those different knobs and buttons. We love the knobs, but
especially little knobs like on a F1.
But the big thing about those is like
it's a weird sentence to say.
Hey, you said you were sexually attracted to ram boxes once.
Yes.
We have it recorded.
So are you? Shut up.
Oh God. Okay. But one of the big things that you can do is, and one of the things that they are watching now is you can do. It's called engine mapping, and what you can do is you can have different settings that manages the torque output and all this other stuff.
I mean, it's exactly like what cars have. It's different modes.
Yeah, but it's like 10 different modes.
Crazier.
But also they can change up the mode. So just because in one race, mode 1 is the one that works the best, they can change mode 1 to something different, and maybe mode 1 isn't the best. It's very technical how they do it. But one of the things is that they want to limit the number of like traction control and other things. And right now, one of the big key things that they're hitting hard on in Formula E is this engine mapping that gives you basically traction control. So if you
wait, so you're saying the cars don't have traction control, but with software?
With software, they can
create
traction control.
That's weird.
Yes, it's very weird. But all of those steering wheels, F1 steering wheels, I would say they're probably like $20 million. Just the
Not just the steering wheel. Just the steering wheel is like $50,000.
No, the steering wheel is really expensive. It's up there. It's got to be like
$50,000 is also really expensive
Yes.
for a steering wheel.
I'll have to
Also,
look at
just
that.
another thing I don't like about Formula One.
My.
It's like, the steering wheels are $20 million. Like, there are people starving in Africa?
We need to do a podcast on just like hating on the power wagon.
It's
Yeah,
true.
This is
exactly.
what he's like just
Listen, I'm
twisting
just
the
like,
knife.
I just think I bring in a perspective of I don't know racing, and here are the
You're right,
reasons
sorry.
that I don't watch racing, and it's like, why do I care about a $200 million go-kart?
Sorry,
Like, tell me why.
I was looking at the engine
Yeah.
price. Yes, the engine price is like $20 million. The steering wheel is like $100,000 now.
100,000.
Yeah.
They've
So-
gone up.
Yeah,
Since my day.
Well, the guns that they do to just change the wheels to do the center lock, those things are like $30,000. They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's Formula E is just great because it also has attack mode, which they
you got to explain the wackiness of Formula E.
yeah, it's really wacky. So it's only road courses. It's all over the world. Really weird spots.
Which I think is interesting.
It's super awesome.
I like the road courses.
I like that
I like
too.
the racing that it's more unique than.
Right.
I mean, NASCAR's just like. I mean, that's kind of the joke of racing is NASCAR. You just are driving in a circle,
Right.
which certainly takes skill. I'm not taking away from, but it's less interesting than the kind of, especially Formula E. Oh my God, those tracks are so thin. And those cars are not thin.
Oh, and
it's a little bit of a round. What is it? A square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. If you have time, just watch up. Just type in Formula E crashes into YouTube, and there's some really great ones.
And that was actually one of my part of my ideas before we run out of time, which I think we let's go a little longer. On
Yeah,
this
we
one.
can go a little longer.
Josh has walked away.
We started.
But one of my
Stop us.
suggestions for NASCAR would be, how badass would it be if they did like a street course with NASCARs?
I think that would be freaking fantastic.
It would
I
be
think
interesting
put a bumper on NASCAR.
I would assume those cars are very much tuned to drive in a circle.
No, but
So
they
it would
don't
be
always. There's Watkins Glen, there's
Yeah.
Sonoma, and then the Roval, which I thought was fantastic
They're
because
going
not
more
only could
towards
you
that.
see the entire track, but it also wasn't just a complete circle. And then you like mix that in with some of the high speed like Talladegas and stuff like that, and you've got a pretty badass racing series,
Yeah.
in my
But
opinion.
I like
But-
what Formula is doing with their race courses. I think the thinness of it is an interesting choice because it just feels like they're forcing crashing.
they like
which I
crashes.
get. I don't know. It's the same thing of like people who like hockey fighting. It's to me, it shouldn't be part of the sport because it isn't part of the sport.
The big thing about Formula E is that the vehicles are not as expensive.
Yeah.
So those teams can live, they can deal with it. And the thing that I really like is they limit their vehicles to, I think it's 250, it might be 275 now, kilometers per hour, which is like 185
It's like
something.
I think they said it was like 175.
Yeah.
slow,
which is fast.
Slow compared to
But it's
NASCAR and F1.
it's just
but
something that I also just don't. I don't know how
they'll beat you 0 to
I'd be
100
interested to see
kilometers.
interviews
Yeah.
on drivers, like maybe because they're never going to say when they're actually doing it. But it's like I can't imagine the drivers are super stoked about being in a sport where it's clearly being designed for them to crash at 170 miles an hour.
I don't think
because I
they-
don't think they would find that terribly funny to have happen to
I don't,
them.
I don't think that's exactly what's happening.
It
but-
feels-
It sounds better than
to-
podcasting with you.
To me, having a track specifically designed to be really thin,
Yeah.
and having this attack mode, which is a speed boost, and to have
Right.
the next thing, which I think we all hate, which is the fan boost.
yeah, that's
That's terrible.
So having cars,
But I like
having
it.
cars,
It's different.
have different,
But I don't. That's
massively different speed advantages, and then also warping the track in a way where it's like, all right, only one car can make it around this corner at a time kind of thinness. That to me is like, boy, we hope a couple people crash this race, which I don't like from just like a I hope no one dies perspective.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about NASCAR before we go on to our favorite racing event, and then we can talk about our bracket and then our vehicles.
I think
Yeah, we're
I've
gonna
given
drive
NASCAR it's enough exposure
Yeah.
this time around. It won't be the last time. So
I like.
Is it
NASCAR.
still? They used to say it was the fastest growing. Is that still the case, or is it slowed down?
definitely still the case.
Yeah,
Fastest.
Actually,
what do you
no,
mean by
I don't
fastest growing?
I think.
I don't know, dude. I don't.
Number
not a
of
business
new
guy.
people watching?
Yeah, just
no.
like, yeah, it used to be huge.
Formula E is more like is the fastest growing, but NASCAR probably of the top ones is still growing at a better pace.
Yeah,
But it's not as. I mean, it's still huge. I mean, obviously, you heard my opening. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway now can hold 257,000 people.
And
That's
maybe
a quarter of a
That's
million
almost
people.
as many listeners as we have.
maybe one of the
That's almost
issues
as many.
of one of the reasons
Total
I'm
downloads,
not
too.
a huge fan of racing is that I've just never been to a race, and I would
Let's
assume
change that.
I
Done.
would assume the experience of even NASCAR, because again, if you look at it on TV, it's like, why am I watching NASCAR? Like they're just driving in a circle.
Okay, so next
But
year,
in
2020,
person, that's got to be different, and it's like an experience kind of thing.
I've got something. 2020, we're doing 3 races then.
Yes.
We're going to do the New York Formula E race. I don't know when that is. I know that there's a Formula 1. Either we can do either Austin or we can do the one in Canada, the Canadian Grand Prix, which is a fun one to go to because it's in June. They like beer up in Canada. It's good.
I like
He
that.
doesn't drink beer.
And dang it.
That could
I'll
also
go
be,
with you.
It could also be why I don't like racing, is
Well,
because I'm
that-
not
that
drunk
could-
when I
well,
watch it.
I'm not saying that you have to be drunk while you're watching it. It just helps a little bit with the downtime. But no, they got poutine up there. You like poutine?
I don't.
You don't like poutine? Oh, my God.
Unbelievable.
Anyways,
This guy is
We
unsalvageable.
gotta talk about the AMG. Something that
Hold on.
something
hold
that
on,
matters.
Hold on. You're going
Okay,
way too
Graham,
far ahead
you
here.
have the
Jesus.
floor.
Best racing event. You can just say one thing.
We'll just say it real
Just
quick.
say it real
All right. Alex.
Well, mine was the Baja 1000,
Boom.
but that's just because I like the Raptor. So, and that's kind of how the Raptor was birthed.
yeah. Baja's.
It's sweet,
Unbelievable.
I just like
I love
off road.
Baja.
Off road racing is
Yeah.
more my shtick, and more racing that is more about time and less about actually like the Baja. You are racing people, but it's such a huge course.
You like the
that
time
it's
racing, yeah.
It's less about physically racing.
Sure.
The Baja,
still racing
it's like
times.
go as fast as you can, don't die.
Yeah.
Like,
You're still racing times, but I understand what you're saying. Time trial type stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. I like Baja. Go ahead.
Of course,
Jeff?
I picked the 24-hour Le Mans just because it's the most incredible race. Back then, and to this day, I still feel like it is.
It has some of the best racing history over a period of time. Yes,
just
there's
incredible.
there's other races that have a little bit of like time that has better like back and forth fighting and like all these other things where it's more compelling. But overall, like Le Mans is just one of those races that you have to look at or like at least like know who's in it and who won during a year. But I'm saying these last couple years have been a little bit, I don't know, a little bit less entertaining, but.
Right. Well, I still think it's the ultimate test of man and machine.
I mostly don't like it right now because Porsche left.
Oh, well.
Yeah, LMP.
But
but
I know that hurts.
that's a side thing. They have the most car manufacturer wins at Le Mans, but still they just were like, we don't want to do it for right now.
all right, Graham, what's
Anyways,
yours?
mine would be the Monaco Grand Prix. I think it is just like it is
Classico,
top notch.
molto bene.
It's yes, there's a lot of racing history in it, and now it's been a little bit boring because the cars are so wide and a couple other things that basically if you have pole position, you're basically gonna win the race. But it's still just like everything around it. It would be my first one if I had endless amount of money. That would be the first one that I would go to. Yeah, that's my top one.
So when we go on a trip, you and we can go to Monaco and enjoy the race, and we're going to leave him
Very
out in the
good.
middle of the desert with Josh.
Very good.
Where they can do their overlanding
Josh
stuff.
probably wants to go to Monaco too.
we can saber some champagne bottles off of.
I would
somebody
go to
else.
Monaco. I just don't want to see the race.
Yeah,
We're going to put you in the luggage compartment.
Monaco is one of the most expensive cities to live in
Besides
the world.
Denver.
In the world,
Denver's not even
but-
close.
but
I know,
they
I
have
know.
no taxes. So a lot of F1 drivers actually have places in Monaco because they don't have to pay the taxes.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'll just
Good to know, a
I'll
little
just
bit
call
of
Lewis
information.
and see if we can stay at his
There's
place.
Graham Briggs
Oh, yeah,
with his
Lewis.
avoiding tax.
You guys,
info.
one of you hates
IRS,
NASA,
please
one of you
don't be
avoids
listening to this.
taxes. Anyway, let's talk about this AMG briefly
Mm-hmm.
because it's a perfect segue from Formula One.
Yeah, that's a good
Because
one.
Mercedes AMG
Yes.
obviously has been dominating Formula One,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're getting a little taste of that ourselves with the 2020 Mercedes AMG GLC 63,
Mm-hmm.
which we had on loan. And boy,
It was good.
that
Yeah.
4-liter hand-assembled V8 is... I dream of it. When I close my eyes at night, I can hear that burble and that crackle and that pop, and
For a 4-liter, it's a deep.
it sounds like a beast for such a small displacement
you would
engine.
think it would be like a 5.3 liter one that they have, right? Because that's the other one that they have a V8 is a 5.3. I think it is.
so, yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
not in the GLC
No, just period AMG models. They have a 5.3 liter V8.
and
I
a
think.
6-liter V12.
Well, yes, I knew that. I was just saying in their V8 model lineup, I think they have two. They have a 4.0 liter and then they have a 5.3 liter, I think. But yeah, no, I think the car was great. I think we all have said like it's just not our model type. I love that it's an SUV, that it's got more room, but it's one of those where it's like I'd either like it a little bit smaller, so it's more like
Sporty.
Right.
sportier, or
Yeah.
I'd like it bigger so I could
I
carry
think
like a whole
and
family.
here's
and all
an
the other
interesting
stuff in
thing,
it.
which I just thought of that is we at least especially Jeff and I, we both really like the Trackhawk, and this is a direct competitor. Or
True.
Yeah,
if
it's a
if
little bit
anything-
smaller, I think, than
So,
Trackhawk, right?
I think it might be a tad bit smaller than a Grand Cherokee.
Yeah.
The new Grand Cherokees are pretty big. But
Yeah. Well, and the GLC was
But I-
4,554 pounds.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
it's a big car, but I think it would be a great daily driver. I
Yes.
think that was maybe one of at least my complaint. And I think a couple of our complaints was that it was as fun as it was, as great as the engine was. It felt kind of tame. Like it was like
Little bit.
I'm not going to die in this car. I feel really safe even at high speeds.
Yeah, but that's because we weren't going too crazy with it, And also, we did not take off the traction
we kept
control.
the traction on.
Yes.
We
yeah,
did.
but there's a different. I mean, there's plenty of cars though that provide a really fun and kind of sketchy experience with full traction on. Right? I mean, there's plenty of cars.
Yeah,
and
you
this
just-
car was
you
just
just-
like, I'm gonna keep you alive no
Just
matter
bald
what.
those tires, and you're fine to go.
Yeah, which sounds perfect for you, Mister. Oh, I don't like racing where people are in danger.
Yeah.
I don't
But
like racing when they put them in danger. Racing is always dangerous. I don't like it when it's designed to be dangerous.
It's
That's
not
the
designed to
All
be
right, the
dangerous.
haterade needs to be stopping.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Stop over there.
But I do want to touch on the AMG because for
Yep.
me personally, I got to drive it for a little while, and you guys are exactly right. For me, it was weird because I would start driving it, and it's so good, and I would get lost in the driving experience that I would think that I'm driving one of the cars. And then there'd be a little hint of, oh, wait, this is an SUV. And you could feel it. And I'd be like, this should be a little more aggressive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wait, I'm driving a 4,500-pound SUV.
Yeah.
And then I come back to, wow, this thing is incredible for what it is.
It's.
And I would not hesitate to buy it. It's totally worth
yeah.
the
You
$83,000.
think it's worth? I don't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I would
Oh,
spend the
without a
80
doubt.
on it. I think my pocketbook would be closer to like 65, 70, which is kind of like nickel and diming it at that point.
Yeah.
But to me, it didn't. The interior, which was really nice, we all constantly were like, wow, these seats are really nice.
Yeah.
They were.
Plus, it had your favorite infotainment center you've ever used.
It was no second.
Oh,
it was good.
what's better than that?
I think the Dodges are still better. It's not as pretty, but so the center console,
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have the Dodge, but the gauge cluster in the AMG
Yeah.
was my favorite.
Okay.
It was.
Okay.
I thought that was spectacular.
There.
And I thought I wouldn't. I thought I was always going to be part of the crowd that would rather just have analog.
So you just like a tablet, basically. In
Yeah,
the center.
it was pretty. It wasn't hard to read. I liked that they gave you options. I wish they would give you more, or they
Yeah.
just would kind of like make an app that lets you make your own.
It-
Would be
it
really
is-
cool.
They definitely have gone. If it can bring an analogy, they definitely have gone the way of Apple versus like an Android model, where it's not like the customizability is there, but it's more like, you want this light function, you can have these different options. Or
Yeah.
if you want this mode, you can have these different options. There's certain areas
yeah.
where you can go in and customize a lot more, but they have gone a little bit more of the way of Apple, where it's a very like, these are the set modes that you can choose from. You can have the ability to choose from these different set modes, but you can't make your own set mode.
Yeah.
And that's smart because honestly, older people are buying these. It's an SUV.
Agreed.
It's an expensive car. It's a Mercedes.
They know what
Just
they're
makes
doing.
sense.
I think
they-
it's pretty darn close to perfect for what it is.
For an
Yeah, I
SUV.
think-
Like, there's definitely ways it could be better, which in some cases might make it worse. Like, it is so heavy. It would have been nice if it's funny. It's like 470 horsepower. It would be more fun if it had more horsepower just to move that weight around a little more. But it's like, would that make it better? It might not. It might ruin the car.
Well,
'Cause
you
then
can get the
it
coupe.
might make it,
yeah.
You can look at the coupe, and the coupe has the bigger engine in it.
yeah.
And we'll see too, because I just got word that we're getting an Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio,
Which
So
has 500 horsepower.
505
So it's-
horsepower
so
from a
it's-
2.9 liter
So
V6,
30 to 40
twin
more
turbo.
horsepower. It's a smaller car too, right? It's not as big as this one. It's a little smaller. Or is it?
No, it's the
pretty-
same
roughly the-
size. I don't know.
Okay.
The weight is the same.
So that'd be interesting to see
We'll compare 'em.
what like
Mm-hmm.
30 to 40 horsepower, if that makes a difference in funness.
Mm. Before we jump into the next car that Jeff that you're going to be reviewing, which we should just talk about. It's
Well, I think
It's
awesome.
not that bad.
But I want to talk about what we're going to be talking about during our excuse me, our next podcast. We are putting together a bracket
yes.
of the best vehicle of 2019-2020. So next podcast, we're going to be taking about half the podcast and going through some vehicles. But we'll be putting this out. If you've ever watched like a Doug DeMuro, we're basically kind of ripping off him a little bit. But we're basically taking each of these cars and kind of giving them a score, and then we're putting them up against each other, and then at the end, we'll have the top of our car bracket, we'll have the top of our truck bracket, we'll have the top of our hypercar, supercar, and then the top of our. Did I say SUV? I don't think I did.
No, but
SUV.
it's there. Yeah.
So,
It's there.
So get ready for that. And
it's
then-
like March Madness meets our own personal
Right, yeah,
Doug
exactly.
Hero scores.
Right.
And we're going to duke it out eventually, and we're going to
exactly.
take a bunch of fun stats of like, whatever. Just stay tuned.
Yeah, just stay
It'll be
tuned.
good.
We'll have it's going to be top quality entertainment.
All right, let's quickly talk about what you're currently driving.
Yeah, so I traded the 2020 GLC AMG 63 for a 2019 Fiat 500X.
Nice.
Yeah, and actually, it's not that bad of a car. Alex fits in it, surprisingly.
I do. I also
Pretty comfortably.
I also fit in the AMG quite well as well.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's always like
It's-
the height test.
Yeah.
I'm huge,
Yeah.
so it is worth noting.
I think any seat that you can do the up and down.
Motor on? I think
No.
you can. Not really?
No, there's tons of cars I don't fit in that have tremendous seats. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah,
No, like
No.
the ability to go up and down. Like
that is the big thing. I
Yeah.
need that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been in the Fiat, and you're Jeffy right. It's not bad, and I kind of been joking the whole time, like, oh, this is a travesty that we've been given this because it's not the prettiest car, and it's not.
Are you kidding
it's
me?
not-
I've gotten a few compliments on its looks, actually.
yeah, from other men.
Okay, this is coming from a guy who tolerates the Tesla truck, mind you.
Tolerates. Yeah, exactly.
I do tolerate it. I don't like it, but I tolerate it.
there's so
But
many.
I think
And what's
it's-
wrong with
I
that,
think-
Alex?
no, I think
What's
that-
wrong with getting compliments from men?
I think the Fiat.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Fiat is a good example of it's just
Love who
it's
you
car,
love, Alex.
and it's fine, and there's no shame in buying it. It's just never going to be exciting.
It's true, and especially after an AMG. The thing
Well,
is, the
well,
thing
yeah,
that I've been thinking
any
about it though,
car.
as I've been driving it around though.
Yeah.
I've been considering a lot of things about it's a crossover, compact crossover with all-wheel drive, a little turbocharged engine.
What is the engine that
I
has
think
in
it's
it?
like a 4-cylider.
Yeah, it's a small like.
It's probably just the Fiat 500 engine, but in a car twice the
but
size.
it's turbocharged.
But it's turbocharged. Okay.
and so it has pretty good. It has pretty good performance.
How'd it go this morning with all the black ice? That would be my question.
Oh, fine.
Fine.
Well,
Fine.
he has a 3-second
I
commute.
know he does.
It
but
might be
still-
faster for Jeff to walk than
Jesus.
deal with the traffic.
Depending on the car that I'm driving.
Yeah.
But no, it actually, so I was thinking about it and I was like, well, this car is inferior in its build quality to things like a Honda CR-V, a Toyota RAV4, a Mazda CX-5, but design-wise, it's interesting, it's different, it's fun, it creates a sense of occasion, and it's traditionally Italian in that way. So if you like the design
Molto
of the car
bene.
and the function works for you, I would have no hesitation buying it.
Chef Boyardee?
Would
In fact,
Would you have any hesitation buying it when you found out that it was $35,000?
no, Alex, because I think that design matters, and I'm willing to pay for good design.
You're a bold-faced liar because in the car you said I would not pay $35,000.
That's not true.
I'm gonna have to.
You're
look at
welcome
this.
to lie to the
Okay,
listeners.
there's gonna be a few dealer incentives out
Anyways,
there. I'd pay 33 for it.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we're
See
getting the
that
wrap it
incentives.
up symbol.
Josh
so-
is telling us to cut it out.
Hey.
Who's running this podcast? You know, Graham, my dad already gave me that advice. Okay, guys. Like Graham said, let's wrap it up. I just want to say thanks to Josh for letting us do this whole thing. It's quite a bit of fun. Fiat Chrysler Automobiles for letting us get behind the wheel of some of their awesome machines. Now Mercedes AMG for also letting us get behind the wheel.
Alfa Romeo.
And yeah, well, that's part of the Fiat Chrysler
know,
brand
I know.
portfolio. And ourcommunitynow.com, where you can read more on our thoughts on cars, culture, food, and more. Most importantly, if y'all are hungry, go down to Colorado Ranch Market,
Opening.
please. Oh, the grand opening, and then thereafter in Colorado Springs, 3333 North Academy Boulevard. And don't forget to enter to win that Oculus VR headset so that you can go on a 360 test drive with us. I'm your host, Jeff Herbert. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for listening to another episode of OCN Drives.
This has been OCN Drives, brought to you by Our Community Now. Please visit us at ourcommunitynow.com and check out them socials.